everyone. My name is Raymond, and today I'm going to be talking to you about video games in the classroom and what it all means and how we can use it. Before we begin, there's a couple of things. If I make any jokes that fail to land, I apologize in advance. You don't have to pity laugh for me, but just in case. And I've been a huge gamer since I was 5 years old. My first game being Super Mario, and I might be aging myself here, but I also love the Disney Channel games on their website and the Cartoon Network games. I don't have a favorite one from that era, but they were fun and made me learn more things I learned in elementary school. So, does this sound crazy? Using video games for learning purposes sound like an idea that can go horribly, horribly wrong. There are games out there that are not school appropriate at all to teach and use, and parents can complain about the content to the teachers, supervisors, superintendent, principal. It can all go horribly wrong. And some say that there is no educational value about video games and how you can use them in English and other subjects like math, science, physics, history, whatever. Some people say that there's no educational value at all. According to Schaefer, like books and movies, they can be used in antisocial ways. Games are inherently simplifications of reality, and current games often incorporate or are based on violent and sometimes misogynic themes. Critics suggest that the lessons people learn from playing video games as they currently exist are not always desirable. So examples of this include games such as Grand Theft Auto, which can teach you how to steal, kill, sell drugs, do anything for money. Mortal Kombat, which in 1992 was the reason why the ESRB rating system was developed because of the horrible, gory mess that was. And Tomb Raider for its portrayal of Lara Croft and the huge sexual implications that it have. Even though these games are fun, I don't think they could be ever used in the classroom. So, on the positive side, we have the use of narrative in game form. The use of narrative is a common practice to teach in the ELA classroom. It's basically how a character develops the story with its plot, theme, character development, and basically it's the way the story is told. There are also different genres of games that include coming of age, horror, romance, British lit, etc. It's the same as, genres of literature, like coming of age, horror, romance, British literature. They all correlate. As they become more mainstream, many have suggested a place for video games in the English classroom. Authors in the pages of this journal have argued that video games can boost problem-solving skills and enhance reading skills, that video game-based books can serve as a bridge to other readings, and can teach students about social issues. And that's coming from Austenstein. So, let's go to a little example from the mouth of a professional. Ish. Professional. Ish. One form of narrative is called emergent narrative. And that definition of that is any video game narrative that is not written in the game, but emerges from the player's interaction with various gameplay subsystems. It's different from traditional narrative, where the story is actually written into the game and you follow the exact story without any choices. So it's like a choose your own adventure story, but in digital and physical form. This YouTube video I'm about to show you is from the Games as Literature channel and explains how video games can bring a form of narrative that you can teach called, emergent narrative. And I'm only going to show about 3 minutes and 43 seconds of it because it's too long and I don't want to waste you guys' time. So let's go. Hopefully there isn't any ads.
Whatever the day brings, Grim helps you communicate smarter, one message at a time.
Hello, and welcome to Games as Lit 101. games add interactivity to the storyteller's toolset, but generally speaking, interactivity is used to strengthen established literary concepts. Today's topic is an exception to that rule, and thus it's a little difficult to talk about through a traditional literary lens. This concept is called emergent narrative. The basic concept of emergent narrative is that the story emerges from the gameplay. So rather than giving you a story to play through, an emergent narrative game is going to allow you to make your own story based on your own experiences. Now, this can happen on a small scale, like a hard-won match of Splatoon, or it can also be on a much larger scale, like the long-term challenge of surviving, discovering, and thriving in a Minecraft survival world. Now, this concept has existed long before video games. I mean, look at how a sports movie can make a story out of a football game, a karate match, or any other sport. The back and forth between opponents, each little action that leads to each success or failure, eventually leading to a conclusion brought about by the skill and determination of both players. Any given sports match undeniably has a narrative, one brought about by the players and observed by the viewers. But only since video games have we really begun seriously thinking about this concept from an artistic narrative viewpoint. This is mostly because video games have managed to mix emergent and traditional narrative in a variety of ways and to various extents. Most games tend to have a fairly linear story, but even when a game gives you an exceptional amount of control over the narrative, like in The Wolf Among Us, for example, it still writes a very heavy narrative and only gives the player the power to shape it in accordance with the narrative's overall direction and goals. This can be very powerful, obviously, but it's still very heavily guided by classic literary concepts. Games that center around emergent narrative will rarely give you anything more than a basic premise and perhaps a few story beats along the way to mix things up a little bit. On the relatively directed side of this concept is the roguelike genre, with entries like FTL Faster Than Light and This War of Mine. On the extreme opposite are games like Minecraft and Civilization, which simply give you a setting and let you shape the events from there through your play. Now obviously this can be really great, mostly because while art is generally about the expression of an author's ideas and of course our interpretation of that expression, games that seek to deliver an emergent experience allow us to make our own story from our own ideas and actions within this arena that the game's creator has provided us, and that can be very powerful and lead to a...
Okay, that's enough for that because it goes into more details and I have time limits, so we're not going to view the whole thing. But you get the basic idea of emergence narrative. So, I like this channel that I discovered recently because it's great to use inspirations for lesson plans, and if students want to create a literary analysis, like an actual paper from it in video form, there's another video on his channel about my favorite video game series, Final Fantasy. He does a literary analysis of that whole game. A warning, that is an hour-long video, so if you want, you can click it on your own time to get a sense of what this channel can do in the ELA classroom and how you can teach it to your students and make your own assignments from it. And oops, didn't mean to do that again. And come on. Technical difficulty. There it is. So, let's move on to literacies in the classroom. 1 second. Let me start that over again. Not a good recording. Gotta love technology, people. Let's see, where are we at? Okay. 1, 2, 3. We'll just do it like this. Alright, literacies in video games. So, how can video games be used as text and literacy tools in the English classroom? Reading video games can have students analyze symbols such as words, pictures, locations, colors, etc. in combination with each other, making multimodal. And they can also help students develop linguistic, visual, audio, and spatial skills if used in the right way. And in combination, these can be multimodal too, which we learned earlier in the semester. So you can make lesson plans that incorporate video games in a visual and spatial way, or an audio and linguistic way. And I like to call video games wild literacies. Video games seem to exemplify multiliteracies in the wild, according to Beavis. And the ways in which literacy today includes, but well, it goes beyond print and verbal form. So in digital form, it's something that literacies have never really developed from, and that's why it gets named wild literacies. All right. In this table from Catherine Beavis in the same journal, she talked about her knowledge of video games, the world around the game, me as a game player, or the person as a game player, and learning through games. With knowledge about games, you have narrative structures and features, generic knowledge, literacies, multi-literacies, developing critical perspectives, and the world around the game is basically the gaming capital, how much the game makes, the context, the global context, and what it means for the world. Literacy practices, like how to develop those skills. You as a game player is your involvement as a player slash reader with the game, involvement of other players, physically present or absent where your mind is at, and your own identity and how that forms playing a video game. And you can learn through games, like learning in certain curricular areas, like the ELA curriculum, serious games, learning about learning, including metacognition and those skills, and how to critique games and critical literacies and how to write analysis from it. And finally, I want to talk about a little bit about learning disabilities and how games can help with that. Students with learning disabilities often have trouble developing motor skills, intellectual skills, and affective and social skills. But video games can help with these three skills in particular. With motor skills, video games often involve movement. They stimulate precision, speed, and coordination of movement. Intellectual skills means that games can involve understanding how things work, resolving problems, and developing strategies. And with social and affective skills, the fictional nature of games, the chance to act out as a character and be part of the group. And you can have a chance to make meaningful decisions that impact the world. And how you can feel part of something. It helps students with disabilities actually feel like they're connected some way through video games. And that's always a useful idea. And these are just some of the common core state standards that I found that will help with video games. I'm sure there's very many more, but I just drew in a few examples. And finally, if I can click down. So I have some question time for you to respond in the comments below. What kind of assignments would you like to make using a video game? And what is your favorite game if you have one? And would you teach in your class? And how would you teach it? And these are just my works cited. Coming up next. Coming up next. And that's basically it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my presentation, and I'll see you guys online soon. Bye.